Good afternoon, good evening, all. It's Bear here. And I'd like to welcome you to my YouTube channel, aboxwithnolid, a channel I'm creating not just to bring the reality and the awareness around what complex trauma is and how we live with it. I want to get into the understandings in a real world sense to help you guys and support you guys to make the changes you need to that you feel you need to support your quality of life. What is possible within your lived world, the world where you are. Now, in this video, I'm continuing on with what is required to heal trauma. And one of the big understandings to have, as in the mechanistic, is how much our nervous system is at the center of everything. I know the last few videos have been around the nervous system, the neurophysiological aspects of who we are and how they play that part in healing. And I want to continue to grow on that and emphasize how important an understanding, just a function, you don't need a PhD, but you need to understand the layers a bit past just a couple of sentences of what our nervous system actually is. Now you can break it down into sympathetic and parasympathetic and vagal and all these components. We don't need to do that. What we do need to understand is there's far more to it than it's just an electrical pathway, a pathway that information travels on, which is what most people think our nervous system is. Signals are sent down this pathway and whatever it's plugged into will do what it's being told to do. There's a lot more to it than that. When you look at it from a perspective of old world cultures, our nervous system, particularly our vagus, is the housing of our consciousness, our soul, our personality, everything that we are. It's not up in here. It's contained within the cell structure of our body and connected through the vagus. The vagus houses our consciousness. And that is part of numerous old world cultures, not just First Nations. Our nervous system governs what we feel. The physical sensations of emotion, the physical sensations of what we feel we are, senses of self and everything else. The physicality of that is the process comes from our nervous system. And why this understanding is important is what we feel drives our behavior, not the other way around. This is why CBT has such cognitive behavioral therapy and talking therapies have such difficulty with complex trauma is words don't touch what we feel. What we feel creates the words. And you can't force yourself to feel something you don't feel. I've sat with, counselors in the past and they've gone, you need to bring more love in your life. Well, if, what love means to you, we know a dictionary understanding, but we don't know what it feels like. How can we make ourselves feel that more? And the progression that always happens in those situations is it becomes your fault that you don't or you can't. Hence my issues with CBT. But that's on a side note. I digress. But what I want to get back to is this core understanding of what we feel drives our behavior. And when you're looking at complex trauma, when you're looking at pre-verbal early childhood trauma, what we feel is not good. And it's been so reinforced so many times, it is buried in our non-conscious. We don't recognize it's there. We don't recognize it's the way it drives us. It has become so habituated and so normal that it drives our survival state. It drives our behavioral responses and it drives the emotions and what we create in our world around that. So when we want to heal trauma, understanding that what we feel drives our behavior, we need to look at ways to improve the ecologies around us to improve the quality of what we feel, the breadth. Not, as I've said in numerous videos, and it's common knowledge in traumatic states create this black and white. It's either yes or no. It's either we go forward or we stop. It's either a fight or flight. It's this black and white. And creating the gray areas. And this is where, like I said in the last couple of videos, that understanding, if we were held 24/7 for several months by every person in a community, as an infant growing up in a healthy, secure environment, there's all these gray areas created in perceptions and feelings and senses, the different ways people feel, the different responses, the different mannerisms, vocal tones, facial expressions, environments, temperatures. There's all these experiences that are held safe, that our nervous system learns to have all these multiple layers of assessing. Not just it's a threat or it isn't. There's all these layers created, this healthy nervous system, this healthy process of sensing our environment, creating an interest in being part of an environment and engaging in an environment. Because it is not just a threat or not. It's because there's all of this. This is our goal. This is what healing trauma needs. This is what needs to happen for us to heal trauma. And if we look at it from the perspective of how raising an infant in a newborn in a secure, happy, loving family, it is not that hard to see what we need to bring in around us to be able to expand our nervous system and how it perceives and interprets, to create all those layers, those gray areas, so that we can have a broader sense of information, a broader amount of possibilities to be able to change what we feel. Rather, if we go from it's a threat or it's not, it's, 9 times out of 10, the first response is a threat. So what we feel is it's a threat. Everything new comes in, it's a threat. But if we've taught our nervous system that it could be a threat, it could be 1,000 other things, we are more likely to keep going and we won't feel that it's a threat. Our guards won't come up. Our ability to explore, our ability to participate, and to grow and learn from that participation starts to occur. And that is what we need to happen when we're trying to heal trauma. Whatever we need to do, if we look at it how an infant in a safe environment does, it will guide us very easily to what it is we need to happen. And then we can take that understanding and look around us in our world and go, well, what can I bring in that can support that? What activities can I do that can support that? And we do it little step by little step by little step by little step. But one of the largest take-homes from this particular video is what we feel drives our behavior. What we feel comes down to the beginning of our life. To give a personal example, because the way I was taken from my mother at birth and put in a dark room in a box. This is why the channel's called The Box with No Lid. It's that plastic box that we're putting in that crib in a hospital. And because I was, slated for medical experimentation, and a lot of babies removed at birth for adoption, drug trials, you name it, we go through it. So I go through a traumatic state, get put back in this box. And because the belief structure is you don't hold or there's no eye contact with these infants slated for adoption, because otherwise they won't attach to the adoptive parents, I learned that this box was my world. And I had to self-soothe and self-regulate my nervous system just within this confined box, which made my neurological perception of my perceived physical reality and world and being was the size of this box. Now, this understanding, when you take it into living a life, I am awesome at the first couple of steps. I can come up with brilliant ideas and how to implement them. But I go beyond those first two steps, it falls down. Because my entire nervous system is shaped to be no larger than a crib, this tiny box. And when you look at it from a physics interpretation, what you observe, when you observe something, it becomes tangibly real. It becomes, in what I perceive solid. Well, not my nervous system can't perceive anything past one or two steps. And this is why cyclically in my life, I can build stuff off great, and then it falls down. And that's because my nervous system was trained over months of medical experimentation, self-soothing in a tiny box, being placed in an adopted family, being too much for them, being placed in a crib behind the lounge, being placed in a room below the rest of the house with a trapdoor on the floor. There's these constant layers of reinforcement that this is my box. And I've been working for years to try to expand my nervous system to create those gray areas. And for all of you out there, it's the same deal. When you understand that my neurophysiological perception of self, my personality, my consciousness, is controlled within a certain space through my traumatic experiences, whatever shape that is in, you can start to see the behaviors that are driven from what you feel that create the physical representation of your reality. And when you find that and understand that, you're able to start to make these little incremental changes. And it takes years. Depending upon the depth and complexity of it, it does take a long time. But at least you can now understand that if I can do this, this will actually change. As always, I love you guys' comments and feedback. Please be mindful, please be safe, and I'll see you all next time. Hope.